Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started with just kind of introducing ourselves, excuse me, and just kind of talking a little bit about maybe what your library is like in terms of how much space you've got and what kind of programs you do currently for Storytime. So I don't know who would like to begin.
I'll start.
Okay.
So hi everybody, I'm Claudia Haines. I'm actually, although my last name is Haines, I'm actually in Homer. And so we do, during the summer, I do all the kids programming. And so in the summer, I do one preschool story time and one story time that's for kids 2 and under. It's like a baby toddler mix. Once September rolls around, I do 2 preschool story times and one smaller kid story time. And we started that a few years ago because our preschool story time was so big that we wanted to divide it in 2. And we do all of the programming for kids, for young kids anyway, in our children's library. So we're kind of, for better or worse, I'm sorry I can't show you, but there's a space in our kids' library that is carpeted, that is open, and it's kind of bordered on one side by toy bins and picture book bins, but then it's kind of wide open. And right now, most of the preschool story times have about 30 to 40 people, and the toddler baby story time fluctuates, but this summer I actually had 70 people at it. Yeah, it was a little bit crazy, and I don't have any more time, and I haven't been able to clone myself, so we haven't added anything to that, but we've kind of been trying to figure out how to manage that group size. But I think that's what you asked, Linda. Is that what you wanted us? Okay.
Yeah. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go, Linda.
Okay.
So in Delta, we have baby lap time once a week on Tuesdays, but not in the summertime. We found out that they don't come in the summer. They're out busy working, doing stuff. And on Wednesdays, we have 2 preschool story hours. We had to split it because we were getting too many kids at each one. So we limit it to about 20 kids at 2 sessions at 10 and 11:15. They're very well attended, and our space is very small and very well used. And it seems like everyone that comes to preschool story hour either has an older brother or a younger sister. So it's never just the number of kids that are signed up. There's lots and lots of kids and people there. In the summertime, we run a preschool story hour, 2 elementary programs, and a middle school program. So there's 4 going on. So it's pretty busy. And it's very well liked, and parents are pretty good about participating. And I'm just eager to hear more ideas from everybody else. Thanks.
Hello, can you see me and hear me from Kenai? You can, okay, great. Yeah, I'm just joining now, so I haven't picked up on where the conversation is.
So what we're doing is we're just kind of going around. This is Linda, and we're just kind of going around and talking a little bit about what we're doing currently in Storytime, what kind of programs we're doing, and talk a little bit about our space. So I don't know if you'd like to go next.
I can go next in Nome.
Okay.
Year round, except in Iditarod, we offer a Tuesday story hour. We cater it to pretty much 3 through 7 year round. But yeah, we get kids, brothers and sisters that come along too, who are a little older or a little younger, which is okay as long as the parents are there. But roughly year-round, we get about 25 kids, and we just moved into a new space, which is so nice. And it's a bigger children's area for them, and it's just for them, and it's actually really nice to see a space just dedicated to children where they can be children. And for our story hour, we offer story time for about a half hour. We offer playtime in the beginning so they can socialize and just be themselves and get used to this area. Yeah, and that's about it. The short end of it.
Okay, great. Anyone else have anything initially they want to share? So I thought we could talk a little bit about, initially just talking about space. You know, in a lot of larger libraries, you'll find like an actual separate room where you're doing story time or other programs. And, you know, I'm curious about how, if you have a certain space that is like part of the children's area, it's not like a separate room. Do you find you have particular problems related to that? Like as far as like, do you have trouble reining people in and keeping their attention free from distractions?
Hi, it's Joyce again. We did have that problem. We sort of have two rules about no running, no yelling. If you're a kid during the program, you need to stay in the kids' area. And then we found some light, portable, 4-foot high walls that we put up. They are about 4 feet long, 4 feet high, and they have magnets on the end, and we can create a little friendly barrier there to kind of corral everybody inside the space, because it's not a separate space from the library. It's just a corner of the library, and that has worked really well. The noise issue we haven't resolved yet, because kids talk and get excited and they sing songs and stuff, so we haven't quite figured that out yet. We haven't actually had a lot of complaints, but we do get some complaints. So sometimes folks that don't like that noise just choose to come at a different time rather than Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and that seems to be working okay for now. But sometimes in that small space, it's like compressing molecules. There's a lot of energy in there, and it wants to pop out. So we need more space, but we don't have it right now. So the portable wall thing is working for us.
Yeah.
We have a children's library that's actually separated from the main part of the library with basically glass walls and a door, and that has worked well. But we have really, over the past few years, kind of Ann Dixon, the director, and I have kind of talked about the fact that even though we have them all contained in the kids' library, the room is pretty distracting when we're trying to all play and read together. So I've kind of managed that a little bit. But I guess I just deal with it. It's not a big deal. Like sometimes the toddlers will wander off and I just have the parents stay with them. But what I do talk to parents about is that even if their child has moved off and has found the toy cubes we have in the library, which are pushed they're kind of at the far corner of the kids library, is that they're still listening and they're still often participating even from afar. So I just kind of, before story time, I'll make sure all the toys are put away, all the toy cubes are stacked up. I have signs over the iPad and any of the computers, and kind of really reinforce this idea that we're going to read and play together during story time, and then after that I'll bring all the other stuff back out so that kids can explore the things they want during the craft time of the preschool program or just this playtime. A lot of the families after the toddler story time will stay for a half hour, 45 minutes to socialize. So some of it I just have it's become tradition, or I've just kind of talked to families when new families come. We don't have signups for Storytime programs. So when new families come, I kind of give them the lay of the land. So that's kind of how we just make it work.
Yeah.
And I was just going to mention here from Kenai that just to catch up, we offer 2 story times there. We offer a preschool story time on Wednesdays. We offer it's called a We Read on Tuesdays for the 3 and under crowd. We're fortunate that our kids area is an enclosed area, and a large enclosed area too. And the actual area that we read the stories is large enough to fit our needs. That being able to shut the door to the kids area has been very beneficial. We've heard a lot of compliments from our patrons that it's nice that their kids can be a little bit noisy in there and not have to worry about keeping the voices down or having to be on the kids for that. I just wanted to throw out that one thing that I have started to implement, which within the same room, we have our AWE computer system and the kids' computer systems. And to avoid distraction from maybe some older kids, particularly in the summer, the older brothers and sisters that come that want to get on the computers, I cover the computers in a sheet, and even some of the distracting kind of materials, like we have these movable pads that they can sit on and things like that. I cover those in a sheet. I'm starting to cover some of the stuffed animals in a sheet, and just avoid all the distractions to concentrate on the things that the librarian has brought out to show for the program for that day. And then afterward, all the sheets get removed, and you're more than welcome to do anything you want there. It's been beneficial. We're fortunate that we have the room, but I have found that just the simple sheet covering has helped greatly. So anyway, just want to throw that out.
Great.
I'll go next.
Sure.
What's helpful with us, we do our story time before we open, and we open at noon, and it helps a lot because of the noise level, and pretty much the kids can be kids. During story time, there is a lot of distractions. Kids just, the initial play to just play. We set out toys, but once we start story time, it's kind of funny. Each time we go to our corner, I bring out eggs, and that's usually the initial reaction for the kids, like, oh, story time's starting, because they see the eggs and they see the fun, and they kind of like realize, oh, we need to get ready. And we have 2 play cubes, one's small and one's big. We keep one in a corner, and then we have a small one that we keep on a rug, but I usually put them up behind me where we're telling the stories, so they don't initially go to it, because it'll be behind me and they'll realize, oh, I need to pay attention to her. And we have all computer stations that we turn off before story time, and we just tell them we're going to turn it off just for a little bit, and then after you can play with it. And parents are good with their toddlers and their babies, and they'll initially ring them in, but they get easily distracted. It's kind of a learning process. If they keep coming, they keep realizing, oh, story time means sitting, and we get to listen to a story. And they just learn it slowly, and it just takes the parents and them teaching it kind of deal. That's it.
So I'm curious, are all of you doing pretty much what I would guess you would call like a traditional story time? Or are you doing extra programs like that involve a lot of space, like craft programs, with your story times? Or are you pretty much limiting it to basically the storytelling part of it? I'm just curious if you find you have room to do additional activities.
Sure, I can.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, sure. Thank you. I was just going to say that with our We Read, or the 3 and under, it's the traditional story time followed by I have blocks, I have young kid toys, and then it's kind of a gather around and a little bit of a play time there. From time to time, we'll get guest speakers in that will initiate some different kind of activities after story time. We had a pediatrician come in and kind of talk about and pull out a little doctor's kit and do that kind of interactive program, and that was a lot of fun. But with our preschoolers, I feel I'm able to get away with a lot more in terms of their attention span, and we do have the space. So we migrate from the Storytime area. We have 4 tables set up, and since I've been running the program, every story time is followed by a craft time for the preschoolers. And sometimes even getting from the story time to the craft time can be fun. We did a story time all about ninjas, and just to get from the story time to the craft time, they had to go through a ninja obstacle course, and it was a lot of fun. And then the craft always relates to the theme of the story time. And some of them are very involved, but some of them are very simple. We learned about how to make a collage, and that was pretty easy. A lot of the crafts deal with just basic cutting. We use the glue stick, basic gluing, cutting, just things that preschoolers are starting to develop. And then we do, outside of some of the story times, we're starting to offer these beginning drawing courses. I love art. I love to draw, and so we're just now introducing some little drawing courses outside of story time, just to get a little bit more into the arts outside of story time also. So
Great.
So in Delta, we do almost a carbon copy of what you're doing in Kenai, with the exception that we also kind of have a set routine for preschool story hour. They do a little bit of songs or finger plays, and then our youth services person read the story, and then they do a craft related to the story, and then we have a little time for a snack, and the parents bring the snack, and we always emphasize it needs to be a healthy snack. So they sign up week to week to do that: carrots, grapes, apple juice, whatever. Once in a while, a cupcake or a cookie for a birthday. But we try and keep it really, really simple and really short, and so it's about 15-minute little segments for that hour. We do a lot with colors and numbers, just the basic preschool things. And same thing, glue sticks and scissor skills are important to do. And then we did have an issue with parents doing the craft for their kid. It was getting to be a real competition who had the coolest craft thing. And we thought about it, and we did a little research, and somebody said have the parent do their own alongside the child, which solved the problem completely. Then the parent could, gussy up their craft really and let the kid do theirs at their own level. And that worked really, really good. So we kind of encourage that. Parents usually sit back a little during the story, the song, but when it's in craft time, we ask them to come up and be right next to their child. And we're pretty rock solid about no devices during story hour, even for moms. Don't need to look at your phone. And we always make the exception, unless you're a first responder, which nobody is, but then they kind of get it like, oh yeah, it's probably not urgent that I talk about something for 20 minutes with my friend while my kid is at story hour. So no devices, no laptops, no cell phones, of course, in the library at all. But that has changed the tone of things. They're more focused and directed to the story and to their child. So that works really good for us. I had one other thing to say. What was it? Oh, and when we get to it, signing up is important for preschool, because we have had people show up and not had enough art supplies for that child or whatever. So we really are insisting about signing up, and then we make little art packets, little kits, so each child gets one. And it's not like, well, my 9-year-old wants to do this craft too. It's like, no, this is for preschool only. So we try and run a tight ship, but still be flexible.
So here in Homer, the preschool program we do books and songs and whatnot for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then we always have art and science activities. Usually we have I think we have 5 tables in the kids' room on a linoleum floor near the door, so it works out great. I usually have 2 options. Sometimes it's sensory bins, sometimes it's pretty open-ended art projects, sometimes it's a more science activity. We paint a lot, play with water, scissors, all that kind of stuff. Because we don't have sign-ups, you can usually guess with that group. Ballpark materials. I have off and on had art and kind of literacy, like writing related, pre-writing stuff for toddlers. And I gauge that based on how the group is aging. Like right now I have a lot of toddlers in that group. And so I have an activity after stories and songs every week. When that group tends to move up and there's a lot of babies, I don't do that as much. That program runs about 30 or 20 to 30 minutes. I read one story, do lots of songs and felt activities and bubbles. So that program looks a lot different than the preschool one, as I'm sure it does everywhere. But I also am a huge fan of introducing kids to art. A lot of kids don't necessarily get to paint at home or have supplies, so I think that's kind of one of the great things about Storytime is not just access to the reading and songs, but also those kind of exposure to art and science projects. I think are fun and important.
So do you find that you have enough space for, like you have like you said about maybe 30 kids that come to, or 30 people that come to preschool story time? Is that about right?
Yeah, this summer we have had about 30 people at that Wednesday program, in part because the Soccer Association had the Little Feet soccer program on Wednesdays, Monday and Wednesdays. During the school year, we'll see 30 to 40 people at each of the Tuesday and Wednesday programs. So it's about 20 to 25 kids. And I can say probably in the last 3 or 4 years, I've only run out of a specific material once. And that's because it was a very specific activity. And that's kind of why that's kind of why I have a choice of 1 or 2 activities, and they're not incredibly complicated. I really try to avoid projects where I have to prepare a lot of materials because I never know how many people. I don't want to end up with all these weird materials. But then it includes, if I have extra kids, siblings come, because you don't have to sign up. There's random people just dropping in here or there. So that kind of open-ended idea really kind of helps on all those fronts. But, I have a lot of cabinets in that kids' room that are stacked full of materials. So I can usually make something work if we have more people.
Great. So I'm curious, now how many of you actually are you doing more just like drop-in, or are others of you doing registration?
So this is Marguerite in Nome, and we do just drop-in, because if we did registration, I don't think people would show up. It's just the way Nome is. But for us, what we do is during the summer, we have huge turnout. We have about 30 kids and 20 adults. So we've been doing really well in our new facility. But during the school year, our story hour is at a similar time as preschool and Head Start. So we get much younger kids then. But we are really into our crafts. Like, let's see. This was one of my favorite ones. This was our walrus, and it's a paper bag. So we had one of our interns do this, and I thought she did an awesome job. She did that. She did a little seal. And we try and do, like, when we do a colorful one, we'll do it in 2 different colors so that the children have a choice. Like in this one, we did it in blue and in purple. And then now we have a cultural center with us in the same building. So we had a lady from the cultural center, and we had Cussbuck Day. So we made this little girl cussbuck, and then we had a boy cussbuck too, and everybody wore cussbucks. And the lady from the cultural center spoke about cussbucks and the importance of cussbucks to our region. And sometimes we like to add something. This was Pirate Day. We had a pirate here, and so we added a little bit of tissue paper. And then for back to school, we have this crayon guy. And this was so much fun because the kids loved this. It was a lot of fun. So our story hour, the craft is really important. The parents put it on Facebook. It gives us great advertising. But we're a little bit scared of using scissors with the kids because the way it is in Nome is we get families, and because we're a small community, they bring infants to 5-year-olds. And so we can't really put scissors in those kids' hands because we're afraid of what's going to happen. But we bought a whole bunch of punches. So if we're going to make the eyes, we always make it a size of a punch so that at least it's a little bit easier for us. But I wish we could do the registration program, but in Nome it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I was going to mention here in Kenai that currently we don't do registration. It's and Marjorie, I'm going to steal that walrus idea. That's an awesome idea. But no, I think it would not work as well in Kenai. There are a lot of programs that we do have registration for where it's essential to the prep work involved. For Storytime, like Homer mentioned, I try not to get too extensive with my prep work for the Storytime. Because of that, I usually prep for 25 and maybe more in the summer. The summertime, like the other libraries were mentioning, we had some day camps coming, so we were averaging 20 to 25 kids. But now that summer's over and school's beginning, it seems like our numbers have gone down to 12 to 15 kids, and the prep work isn't too extensive. So I just prep for 25 and go with it, and I always have my materials to prep a few more if I need to right then. So I haven't felt the need to do a registration. Parents are pretty, I think they really enjoy the idea that some things they can just show up for. We also offer a Lego club, and they can just show up and not have to worry about the pre-registration or feel that I'm sorry I didn't register for this program. And that being said, for the programs that we do require registration, we still have people showing up and things like that, and our count is still a little off. But certainly the registration helps in those programs. Right now in Kenai, we just haven't seen the need to register yet.
Hi, this is Joyce again. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry I'm late. We tried a registration program with a toddler music program over the winter time, and the parents just acted exactly the same as they do with the drop-ins, so it sort of doesn't make a difference whether they sign up or not. We have a really, really small set of kids that could potentially come. Maybe, we have about 20 0 to 2s and maybe about 20, 3 and 4 year olds. And we sometimes get nobody, and sometimes we get one kid, and sometimes we get one kid and their sibling, and then sometimes over the summer we would have like 16 kids. So you sometimes have to prep for a lot and then end up just saving it all for the next time. But in terms of registration, it doesn't seem to actually make parents more committed to showing up here. They still kind of just think of it as a drop-in, whatever we do. So that's
Hi, it's Joyce, and I think it's interesting that it sounds to me like some of you have bigger crowds in the summer, and we get nobody in the summer for preschool. I just think that's amazing. We have big business in the fall and the winter and spring, but summertime our preschoolers don't show up, and so that's why we discontinue it for the summer and just emphasize summer reading. And I wanted to say too, the reason that we really go with registration just for the preschool one, it occurred to me the other day, I'm on my second generation of preschool story hour. I have, kids that I had when they were 3 and 4 and 5. Now they're bringing their children, and everybody knows they need to register. So it's kind of a local tradition, I guess, for registration. And it really helps us out because we have such a limited seating. And like I said, we went to 2 sessions on Wednesdays for preschool, and that has worked out really well. But somebody's getting old in Delta. I think it's me. So when you have grandchildren coming that their parents were in your story before, and they all know registration. So we do, like I said before, we do have we build in a couple extra kits or whatever. So if somebody shows up or forgets, and usually it only takes one time. If we run out of things and somebody shows up and we say, I'm sorry, we're out, it takes about one time for them to remember to register next time. So that's how it works for us.
Linda, I have a question that kind of follows off this. I love hearing about how everybody's making it work based on what their community needs are. And I'm wondering, like in your case in Delta, where you have kids or families register, do you run your story time all year, or are they registering for a session? Do other libraries, and Delta, you were saying you don't do preschool story time in the summer. Do other people take breaks in their schedule? We take a short break in the winter for 1 week or 2, and then I take a break from programming the first week in August after our summer reading. But I'm curious how other people do that, because I know in some parts of the country people have sessions, and I'd just be interested to know what you all are doing.
Our kids register for each session each week. We just have a sign-up sheet, or they can call. And that's we just do week to week, and we go from September to May for preschool, and then we take a break. Like when school's out, we take a break and we shift to summer readers. And right now we're not on. Everybody's going to hunting camp or out and about or getting the garden in, and they're excited to start back. The week after Labor Day is when we're going to start back, and that seems to work for us.
For us in Kenai, our story times it's perpetual all year long. And I was just going to mention that I think that the only reason our numbers increase in summer, if I were to speculate, and there are certainly times when it's a roller coaster and there's no rhyme or reason. Even on beautiful sunny days, we get sometimes more people. It's really hard to distinguish the factors. But I would say a legitimate factor would be at the start of summer, I did make some phone calls to some of the daycares and day camps around the library, walking distance from the library. We're fortunate to have those buildings walking distance from the library, and I just let them know that, and they're housing kids that the parents are working through the summer, and so we get the preschoolers are there, and even some older kids. And we just kind of mentioned to them, they're more than welcome from this age to this age to come to these story times, and this is what we're doing, and I'll give them a calendar and drop off some things. And that, for whatever reason, I think it's those day camps that really kind of bolster the numbers. They'll bring in one little class of 10, and then if I get 2 classes, and I'm hitting more than I usually do in the wintertime. So, and that is where I have to prep maybe 30 for the summertime. The unfortunate part of that is sometimes those classes have other things going on. So like another librarian mentioned, sometimes I'll prep for 30 and I'll get 5 kids, on a rare time, but that does happen. So
in Nome, when I first started here about 8 years ago, nobody was coming to story hour, and I tried to figure out why. And when I spoke with some of my friends, they said, well, we don't know when it is. So when I started, they also took a traditional break, and they just did the older kid program pretty much during the summer for the summer reading program. And so we tried to do it through the summer, and it was a huge success. So I think, as Janet said earlier, we only take the one week off. That's during Iditarod because we are sort of pressured to open earlier for all of our visitors. But other than that, we do it all the other weeks unless there's a snowstorm. And I find that that has really added to our success, although it also has added to the exhaustion of our staff. So I sort of wish that we took a break, but I think at this point, until I retire, I'm pretty much set. I have to go year round.
So Marguerite, do you ever take a break? Did someone fill in for you, or do you just work on stuff?
So if I'm out of town, Janet works with me, and since before Janet started working with me in her capacity as the library assistant, I would do all the story hours. And then from time to time, I'd find somebody in the community that I could actually put on contract. So we do have one amazing lady right now. She teaches ukulele and guitar lessons at a music store, and we have her on contract. And so I'm able to have her come to maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 story hours a year. So if I'm out of town, I try to schedule her with Janet. And as I said, when I started, I used to do the story hours pretty much alone. But now Janet and I, as we've worked together, the story hours we've turned it into like a two-person story hour, and it's really a lot of fun. I think it works well for the kids because Janet and I both have sort of different strengths, and so I prefer never to do it alone. And the person on contract can't be here alone. So either myself or Janet are always here. And like I said, if only one of us are going to be in town, we try and schedule our music person. And she's amazing because my weakness is singing. And so it's great to have somebody who's sort of like helping us get comfortable with that.
Marguerite, is that Sarah Hofstetter?
Yes! How do you know?
Because you used to have my wife too, remember? I don't know if you remember
Oh
that.
my gosh! You want to know what? We cannot see you. Like the little blocks, we cannot see you. Yes. So we used to have Amy Adcox, the most amazing person who also knows how to make balloon animals. I have never met a lady who knows how to make balloon animals as well. And yes, we used to have Amy, and we were very, very sad when we lost her. And if you ever want to move back to Nome, we'd be very happy.
Sounds good, thank you.
So that kind of made me think of a question when Marguerite was talking about, working alone and then now working with a partner. I'm just kind of curious, do any of you feel kind of like you're working in isolation? Feel like you've got a way to share information and get support? Is that ever a problem for you?
Not since Pinterest.
This is kind of extension of the Pinterest, but I would say yes. I mean, I think all of us in smaller libraries are kind of out in the abyss a little bit, and thank goodness for the internet, not just Pinterest, but, this idea of a personal learning network, whether it's other librarians in the state or, communicating with librarians across the country in listservs or Facebook groups or Twitter chats or whatever, either just sharing ideas or, I was on Twitter the other night with someone in Colorado, and we were talking about Storytime, last minute Storytime ideas and books that we hadn't heard of. And I, even if you're not coming up with plans, just knowing that someone out there, at 10, 12 o'clock at night is having the same experience as you, I think is is huge. And so I think even things like this, just knowing that you all are out there kind of having similar experiences is really important. So thanks, Linda.
I liked what Marguerite said too, that now she and Janet are a partner, they're a team together to do it. I actually don't do much with Story Hour. My youth services person does it. I support, I get her supplies, we support each other, but she's the actual front and center, so I don't do it anymore. And that has changed my whole attitude about it. I was getting exhausted with it. You run yourself dry after a while and you can't come up with anything more. But she's been doing a great job for several years, and that has been a huge relief. And I think there's a certain amount of behind the scenes emails on ACLA and stuff to help. How do you do this? Or I'm stuck here. And having an OWL conference is a great idea to generate ideas. And hi, Marguerite. I didn't say hi yet.
I was going to mention here in Kenai, I guess I would say that I would love to have a partner with that, because it is a lot of work each week prepping that. And then kind of like Marguerite said, I'm not musically inclined, so I definitely fall on maybe more drawing and things. And I meant to mention that sooner. Every start of every story time, I have the kids guess the theme through a drawing that I'm doing on a dry erase board, and it's a lot of fun. And I could see that Marguerite and Janet have chemistry, and I think that's important. I have a part-time librarian that works with me here, and I think that we definitely work well together in terms of other programs outside of Storytime. Whenever we throw a Harry Potter Day or Star Wars Day or those kind of things, we really bounce ideas well off of each other, and I think that's very important. I find that even in programs that I'm not working with this particular librarian on, I'll still run things by her to say, hey, look over this. How does that, and she's just a smorgasbord of ideas. I love tapping into her creativity, and it really helps me out. And I keep telling her one of these days you'll come up with a bad idea, but she has yet to do that. So she's actually really, really just a great resource for me. So I think the one aspect of the library setup here in Kenai is that my desk is in the children's room. So I would say 80% of my day is in the children's room. So I am isolated from the other librarians in their collective office space. I don't even have I shouldn't say that. I have a computer access there, but for the most part, if I'm going to go into the collective office space, it's going to be to prep arts and crafts projects and kind of get other things prepped. But my computer space and everything, and even printing, is all from the kids' room. I mean, there's definitely advantages to that, but I think just being able to communicate with other librarians more consistently through the day, that's where I kind of feel a little bit more isolated.
Okay, great, thanks. So some of you have mentioned that you're doing like both a preschool story time and a toddler time. Are any of you, but I know, and this is just also from my own experience, finding that you're going to end up with a lot of mixed age story times, whether that's intentional or not, where siblings are going to be coming. And do you plan for mixed ages, or do you just say, hey, I'm advertising this as a preschool program, and that's what I'm going to gear my material toward? I'm just curious how you deal with mixed ages, because I'm sure that happens a lot for you as well as, it happens for me a lot too.
So in Nome, we pretty much advertise it as 3 to 5 years old. But as I said, we get sometimes 0 to 8 because we get some homeschool families. And even sometimes they'll bring a teen. So if they do that, normally the teens will go on the computers and do their homework or do a research project, and there's just no way for me to change that. If somebody, and we really try not to have any choking hazards already, so that seems to be okay. And I sort of feel once I went to the San Francisco Public Library and they had an amazing baby lap sit, and I thought I would love to do that, but it would just never work in Nome unless we provided additional childcare for the other kids, because Nome is just so family oriented, and so as much as I would love to do one of those, it just would not be popular with my community.
I feel in Kenai that the mixed ages, do older kids come to the younger story time? Since we offer the two story times, the We Read and the preschool, we do get older brothers and sisters coming to the We Read. For the most part, it can be helpful to me as the librarian leading the group, because I'll ask questions, and some of the 3 and under crowd, sometimes, my questions might be a little over their head, or I'm having them guess, the drawing and things. Well, it's always the older kids that are raising their hand and getting a little more involved. And I'm okay with that, because I still definitely feel like the younger ones are learning just from the participation and excitement from their older siblings. It's almost unusual sometimes to not have an older sibling attend. Then the crowd is, maybe a little bit quieter and a little less participation from the younger ones. Preschool is a different ball of wax, but I think with the We Read and the 3 and under crowd, that interaction, I just feel that it helps me a little bit whenever there's an older sibling there. A little, when I say older sibling, I'm thinking, a 5-year-old or something.
So this is a big issue in Delta, and we have decided to use it as a teachable moment, that we say to a parent with someone 3 and under who comes to the 3 to 5 program, their program was yesterday, or your program is tomorrow. And there's a lot of instant gratification in our world today, and teaching a child to wait their turn until their program has turned out to be something we didn't think would be that successful. We thought parents would be mad, but it actually has worked really well. So now the parents are saying, remember, you had your program yesterday. Today it's Sister's Day, and we're here to help her have a good time. So it caused some uncomfortable moments for us as staff to sort of stick to the line, like, no, your 2-year-old can't join the 5-year-old craft program right now. Their program was yesterday. But it's worked out to be, like I said, a teachable moment. And we have several new families in town, and I was proud the other day to hear a parent say, remember, your preschooler is on Wednesday and your toddler is on Tuesday, and never the twain shall meet, even though some of them are there both days. It's worked out better than we thought. I was hoping it would, but I wasn't really sure it would. But it has worked out well, because the parents are on board with it too.
This is Kenai and Skagway again. We're usually so excited that any kids are actually at Storytime that if they're 0 years old, that's fine. I actually have started having some backup books that if instead of 3 to 5-year-olds, I get several 2-year-olds or even younger, then I can kind of shift it and then maybe just do some kind of little finger play or something, and it just ends up being a kind of a truncated program for the day. And sometimes that's just nice, actually, that the parents get a chance to just kind of chat, and then the kids can play with some toys from the children's room or something like that, if we just end up with the younger ones. But we try and schedule the toddler time for when the 4-year-old preschool is going on. So the oldest that we would possibly get would be 3s. So that's not so hard to deal with. The 0 to 3 range we can manage that pretty well. But like I said, we're just so grateful to get anybody in. I'll try and figure out a way to read an 8-year-old book to a 2-year-old if I have to.
Yeah, that's always a tough one. So I'm curious. So do you find like yourself doing more or less on a weekly basis your more or less traditional story times? Like, are you trying other things like music programs or just strictly like a STEM story time or anything like that that you've tried out that has worked for you?
To me directly or to the whole group? Sorry.
Or to anybody, to the whole group, yeah.
We did. Our toddler music time was really pretty good. We started it last winter, and some of it is that we have more kids that age with more active parents. But I think also just the music really helped the kids want to show up to the library on those mornings. So that's been successful for us, for sure.
I think Marguerite mentioned something about how she wasn't musically inclined, and I kind of mentioned it too. I'm not musically inclined, but we did have a lady that's willing to volunteer her time, and that's been a huge benefit to me as the children's librarian. That she calls it off the page, and it's bringing dance, music to literacy, and it's designed for 5 and under. It's on a weekend, and I don't work weekends, so I have yet to see the program, but I've heard wonderful things from parents, from the other librarians, so pretty excited that we have a volunteer in the community willing to kind of tackle that kind of story, in the sense of story time, because there's literacy involved, but it's definitely dance and music and everything there. So I'm pretty grateful for that.
So we mainly just have a traditional story hour, as I said. Sometimes we have more music when we have Sarah Hofstetter. But we have one thing to show you, right? Because we were supposed to interact. So since I'm not the best singer, but kids love these like egg shakers. So I asked Sarah, what can we do with the egg shakers? So we bought all these egg shakers, and we have this shaking song. And what we do is we sing "If You're Happy and You Know It," but instead of clapping your hands, you shake your egg. And it is like so popular because our sort of attitude around here, we're a little bit more laid back. If we get those little kids and they're not ready to sit through everything, some of them will wander off. But once they hear the egg shaker song is starting, they all come running back. So that's how we're sort of trying to do some fun things, even if we don't have a professional musician with us. But as part of our IMLS grant this year and our new library space, we did buy a whole bunch of Legos. So we do want to do a special story hour, and maybe on Saturday for working parents, because right now our story hour is on Tuesday, and that's really hard for the working parents. And we're, each time, like, we want to become master storytellers, but it's really been a long road for us. So I'm looking forward to what Homer does with their scarves, because I definitely want to start doing some scarves. And I'm looking forward to what James does with his drawings, because I really want to do that. So I'm hoping to learn from you guys today, but I still think I would just incorporate those into our normal story hour instead of have a special story hour for those.
So we have a tradition of starting story hour with a song, and Miss Angie is our story lady, and she uses a different song every week. So like the first week of the month, it's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The second week, it might be If You're Happy and You Know It, You Could Shake Your Egg. But I like that egg thing, Marguerite. And we discovered something, that some parents did not know the words to some traditional songs. Some people didn't know Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. So we made a song sheet that we hand out to the parents and say, these are the songs that you will hear at Story Hour. So you can practice at home with your kids, and then when they hear that song, that they know that's the song that we're going to start with for the week. So I pass that tip on to you. Make a song sheet and hand it out. And we also have a little rule sheet that we hand out too that's minimal. But the song sheet thing has been life-changing for people. And some of them said, oh yeah, I have a vague memory of this nursery rhyme when I was growing up, but I never did know all the words. So now they do. They have words.
So like many of you, I am also not a very good singer, but I have kind of taken that a different slant. One is that I often tell parents that my example of singing anyway is a great example for them, that kids don't care whether you are a professional opera singer. It's just the act of singing with your child. And I think my not being a professional singer kind of really makes them feel more comfortable. But I do sing a lot despite that, particularly with the toddlers and babies. But like the art, I kind of feel like it's great to introduce kids to new kinds of music, new genres of music. And so if I'm not comfortable singing something, I will bring digital music to play, to dance to, scarves, shakers, or whatnot. Sometimes that's popular music that may be popular even with young parents, or maybe it's jazz music that goes with a certain book that we're doing, and we dance around. I think a lot of the kids particularly the younger kids, are more comfortable with music where there's like a prescribed action, like, oh, at this part of the music, we're gonna dance with our arms or dance with our legs, but I don't have a separate music story time. Sometimes we have a volunteer who plays guitar who comes, but I just kind of mishmash it. Like one week I'll incorporate some music this way, or next week I'll incorporate some science or some art or poetry, or so, some weeks I'll use an app, some weeks I'll do this. And I think parents, like other communities, are just comfortable with that here. They just know when they show up that what we're going to do is somehow connected with literacy. I'm going to explain each time why I'm doing what I'm doing, like in 30 seconds, like, oh, this is connected to pre-writing skills, or helps kids hear different sounds of words, or blah, blah, blah. So loosey-goosey, but keep singing, even if you think you can't sing.
So will you tell us about your scarves that you brought?
The scarves, you can do anything with these scarves. So I have a set of these scarves. You can buy them online. For kids who are a little shy, these are excellent dance tools, because even if there's just like free dancing, if they have something in their hand, they can dance with these. With babies, you can play peekaboo, but the babies can still see through them, so it's less intimidating. Juggling for like a circus story time. It's super easy to teach toddlers and preschoolers how to juggle with 1 or 2 or 3. I bring them in a bag, but dancing mostly.
Oh.
I too am curious about the drawing part that you do in Kenai. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Every story time, with exception to when I advertise a Storytimes theme already, but for the most part, I enjoy the idea of the theme being a surprise for both the We Read and the preschoolers. And so I have a dry erase board attached to an easel, real sturdy, and I always tell them, okay, raise your hand, don't blurt it out, raise your hand if you think you know what it is I'm drawing as I'm drawing it. Kind of like a Pictionary or a win, lose, or draw kind of thing, but I'll always start with a very obscure part. So if we're talking about the sun and the moon, night and day, I'll draw maybe a face, and at the very end I'll do the circle with the heat rays coming off of it, and they're guessing, oh, nose, or yeah, that's not what we're talking about today, and we keep going until it becomes the sun, and then they guess the sun. So it only takes a minute or two, but every story time begins with a song, which I was just going to throw out. I feel like my singing voice has improved since I've become children's librarian a little bit, but it seems like every story time begins with the same song, followed by a drawing. It's always a drawing. And I just enjoy that. I feel like that's one thing I can add to the story times is drawing. And we'd have a felt board we use. I tend to lean more towards using a dry erase board for different things. We just did monsters last week. And so during the middle of story time, we talked about, well, can monsters have 3 eyes? You know, yeah, they can have 3 eyes. Can they have horns? And we were just kind of making up a monster as we were talking about it. And that was with I think the preschoolers. But another thing that I found doesn't, may not work so well with the 3 and under crowd, but for the 3 to 5-year-old crowd, was I try and do a story and then an activity or something, and then a story and then an activity, and kind of keep rotating that to fit in 3 or 4 stories. But I have found that even the pause, and if the story time was on dogs, and the subject matter and the theme was on dogs, we have wonderful art books at our library, so we will look at a famous painting, maybe of a depiction of dogs or something, or a famous painting of this, drawn by a great master, and I always give them, show me a thumbs up, a thumbs medium, or a thumbs down if you like it, don't like it, and then we talk about why they like that painting. And I really enjoy that with the preschoolers, just to incorporate a little bit of art, just to look at, and that's just, again, another minute or 2, not much, but a lot of fun. And it's funny to see their reasons why they may really dislike something that, is a famous piece of art or something. So, but.
So I have a question. Oh, so I was wondering, like, you kind of went into that a little bit, but I was curious how people plan their story times, whether you use the same story time plan, every year, or whether you plan out your story times, like a month in advance, or the night before, or a mishmash, like how you all figure out what you're going to do. And I'll say part of the reason I asked this is that a couple of months ago I was talking to a friend of mine who is a librarian in Madison, and she was telling me that I think quarterly or twice a year their system gets together and all the children's librarians divvy up story times, and then the kids kind of rotate around. But I couldn't believe that. They have basically this whole system of children's librarians who are planning story times that everyone else is going to use. And I thought, oh my gosh, can you imagine how easy that would be? So I'm curious how you all do it.
I feel like
Yeah,
I
so
can.
in Nome,
Oh, go ahead.
in
Go ahead,
Nome we're
Marguerite.
like, sometimes it's just the night before, and I hate that, but we just have such a small staff, and we're regularly trying to do it quarterly. We try to plan, and sometimes we'll be able to do a full 6 weeks of planning, especially around the holidays. But we don't really have a children's librarian, so we have 2.5 staff members, and we have to do everything with 2.5 staff members. But I would love that if, like, as a group of small librarians in Alaska, we supported each other in that way. I mean, that would be amazing to me.
I agree. I think that'd be great to maybe just have a little bit of maybe an email that we can all, here's a file of the last 30 story times I've done, use as you wish.
So we have a planning form that we use, and Angie does about a month ahead of time. So, and she will go ahead and pull books that go with the theme of the week. So she can get ready to put up the books that are on display for that week, but we don't want to take them out of circulation too long. So about a month works for us. And then we have our library aide that will prep any art materials if we have one of those Cricut cutters. So if we need to cut out shapes or something, she can get those prepped and bagged up. And then we try to coordinate with our bulletin board too. So the theme of the month sort of goes with the story hour themes that are coming up. And I meant to say too, we also put an example of each week's craft up on a separate bulletin board. It just says, look what we've made. So parents and visitors can see what the craft of the week was and the book that went with it. We just print out a little copy of the book cover. But the big reason that we do this planning so far ahead is because the world revolves around Miss Angie doing Story Hour. If she gets sick, one of us can pick up and do a story hour. So we don't have to cancel Story Hour just because she's not able or sick or goes on vacation or something. And we also have developed sort of an evergreen story hour. It's just a little one about farming and farms and farm animals that's in her office that we just have, everybody knows how to do that story hour. There's books that are there, and we can pull it out if there's some sort of emergency thing that we can do, like if she can't get to work because it's too cold or her car won't work or something. So it's just a little safety net for us. But planning further out than a month hasn't happened yet, which I'm fine with, but a month ahead of time. And then we're always thinking about holidays. We're always thinking about holidays, doing to our Pinterest board. And I was going to say, too, we'd be happy to share our Pinterest board with anybody that wants to, because we are all putting stuff on there all the time for Story Hour and for library displays and stuff. So planning has saved our sanity more than once.
That's a great question. I think it would be great if we were using something in common like Pinterest where I found a lot of great story ideas from using Pinterest. And I find that I rely on that more than I even do on other like librarians that I work with. I'll go looking for craft ideas or things like that there. But I find that really helpful. So I'm curious, do you ever have the opportunity, are you feeling like you're pretty much reaching just the kids, or how do you feel about your interactions with the parents and caregivers? Are you able, for example, to do things like share early literacy tips? Does that kind of fit in with what you do, or are you primarily focusing on the kids? I'm just curious about that.
We're mostly focused on the kids, but we're just about to start a really big push to do the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. We have an early learning event that's going to happen here at the end of September, and at that point we're going to put up a whole bunch of documentation about the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten and try and encourage the parents to participate in that, bring in their logs, they can get little prizes and have a community tracking chart. So I think using that vehicle we can kind of get some more information to parents about pre-literacy, but otherwise explicitly during the story times sometimes I'll explain why I'm doing something, but for the most part we focus just on the kids.
We keep it simple. We remind the parents, check some books out before you go home. Take them home and read them. And sometimes that seems to get lost in the shuffle and the excitement of the kids playing together and stuff. So we sometimes have a little incentive at the desk, like after you check out your books, Miss Angie has a special bookmark or a special sticker for you at the desk. So it's a sort of a evil way to get them up there, but it seems to work okay. They want the sticker, they want the bookmark, so they need to check out books to do that too. And the other thing that we work closely with the Imagination Library, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, we have sign-up forms here. We have events here with the Imagination Library, and our library board is actually their sponsor in the area. So they just passed 10,000 books this summer that they've given out to kids in 3 years, which is amazing. So those are the things we do.
I would like more hints on how to, I like what Homer said about just do it in like a few seconds, and we don't do that enough. I would like to learn how to do that better and sort of model that. We have checked out over 10,000 items since we opened our new library, which is really great. And a big part of that comes from our story hour, because parents will come and check out 10 books. So I think we do a really good job of getting the materials checked out. but I would like to do a better way of sort of tucking in those teachable moments. We do work a lot with the schools and the Nome Literacy Council, and we do family literacy evenings. And so those are going to have more sort of teachable moments, and that's sort of the parents' expectation at those. But at our story hour, we haven't found out how to do that besides modeling behavior with words. So I'd like to learn more about that.
I would be happy to talk to you more about that. You know, we have done some literacy events, but what we found is that parents, when it's like its own little event, a lot of parents kind of feel like, oh, I already know everything about literacy. I mean, they don't, but that has been like, and parents have actually said that to me. You know, they said it's not accurate, but that's how I felt when my kids were little. And so we have really capitalized on the power of story time. I mean, it is a powerful thing, which every one of us has talked about. It's a mainstay of the library. It's where, even in our library, a whole family is there. And so the opportunities to really reach whole families and talk about literacy in those little bites. You know, Saroj Godin, when she was in Anchorage a couple years ago, she was talking about, put 3 asides, you know, 3 little tips or explanations in each story time. I don't necessarily stick to 3, but I at least try to drop 1. And I can see all those wheels turning in those parents' heads, like, boom, that's why she points to words as she's reading every few pages, or that's why, you know, that's why I do this. And they love it. And, you know, and so I've kind of shifted that idea that, you know, this whole family is there, and how can we reach the whole family? And we're doing it at Storytime. I now write a monthly article for the newspaper about early literacy, like everyday early literacy tips. This is what it looks like. And, you know, posting things and trying to get this full spectrum. But those little bites in Storytime have been hugely effective. People ask me a lot more questions. They're more comfortable just, you know, asking what they think are stupid questions. But it explains why the kids and I talk so much about during books and about books instead of it being like, oh, you have to listen now, you know. So there's been really positive yet anecdotal evidence that it's been effective.
Yeah, here I would love to see those early literacy tips also. Maybe and you said you write articles for the newspaper. That I would love to maybe just get maybe an email on some of those early literacy tips to incorporate into Storytime. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and there's a really easy Storytime kit that Saroj Godin and Betsy Diamond Cohen put together. It's probably been 3 or 4 years, and I will email everybody the name of it. It's like Storytime Kit or something, but there's a book, and then there's a thick stack of index cards with early literacy tips on them, and it'll have like a nursery rhyme on one side and then an explanation. So you literally could read the explanation off the card if you wanted to. But there's the full gamut. It's, you know, it's not just about singing or reading, but it's really, you know, they really did an excellent job. And I think it's one of those resources that is not as widely known as should be, but that would be a really inexpensive start instead of having to kind of dig up all these early literacy tools. I'm happy to share whatever you're interested in, but that I highly recommend that as a tool that you could even give a volunteer or give someone who doesn't do story time very much, or maybe doesn't have a lot of experience with early literacy, and I loved that. They did a good job.
Here in Kenai, I was just going to mention concerning the initial question of discussing, is it directed towards the kids, the parents, and our story times are directed towards the kiddos. But I have found that at least with the 3 and under, we read that there's a huge social aspect to coming to a story time for the parents. And I think the conversation's nurtured while, again, for our we read, we don't do an arts and crafts. For our we read, we do just blocks and some kid toys that they play with. And, well, I guess I should say social time for the kids too, just how they interact. This might be their only interaction to playing with other kids and learning to share and all those things, but definitely social time for the parents also. And I think the conversations have been wonderful. As a parent myself, some of, I just throw out little things as a parent that I might be familiar with, but by no means am I trying to give parental advice or anything like that. From time to time, the conversation does lead to literacy and stories and things, and that's wonderful. Then I feel like it can chime in a little bit, but yeah, it's. I think that I was going to ask, do you feel that following story time, that the parents also have a social outlet that's getting met there too?
Well, in Nome, as I said, when we started, we only had 1 kid show up at story hour, and then 2 weeks went by, and then we had 2, and then we had this lady that moved to town that I think now she has 8 kids, but she moved to Anchorage. But she basically created a parent group around the library, and that's when we really blossomed. And I do feel, especially in Nome in the middle of the winter time, and also in the summertime, that parents want a place to congregate and share. And a lot of the houses in Nome are very small, and just to get out of them, especially when you've been sort of cooped up in the wintertime. So I think Janet explained our story hour, we start, and also because the weather can be slippery, so we say that we start at 10:30, but we don't actually read until 11. And so from 10:30 to 11, we have wooden puzzles and coloring pages and opportunities to look at different books. And we spend a lot of time on book displays around our theme. And for us, it's funny. Nome announces our local social media. And every week we tell people what the theme is. And I'll have even like little old ladies stop me in the grocery store and say, I'm so excited to know about the theme. So for us, that's part of our marketing, is people knowing what the theme is going to be. Or sometimes the parents won't even tell their kids, and they'll guess on their way over here what the theme's going to be, if that's part of their family experience. And then after we read, we do the craft, and we still have a little time before the library is open to the public, because although our library is larger, we still don't have a separate room. We just have a separate nook. And it's too hard for us to juggle sometimes our very strange adult patrons with our little kids. So we need to get everybody out of here by noon, or they could stay, but at noon, pretty much, it's no longer just for the kids. But I think that's an essential part. And one thing we're really proud of in Nome is when we first started, we only had sort of like the local professional parents who came here to work at our hospital, as the parent families. And now, for whatever reason, it has turned into local people who went to high school here and are now having kids. And we're very proud that local born and raised Nomites are now coming to the story hour as well.
I love the multiple generations there. The Public Library Association is working on this kind of family engagement push. And I was thinking about, that's a great example of full family engagement. And we may be doing that and involving full families, but we may not be intentionally doing it. And I just think kind of capturing that idea whether it is multiple kids within a family showing up at story time, or, recognizing that parents need that social time that they get after story time, whether it's them pretending to do an art project or that playtime before. I think we're doing that, and it's very successful in our small communities because our families all need this. And I almost think it's almost like we just need to be more intentional about it. We need to, share, kind of emphasize with families that these libraries are a family space. We have a lot to offer for full families, not just preschoolers, not just toddlers, not just adults getting tech help or whatnot, but that full gamut. So I think that's a great example. I can't hear you, Linda. I don't know if anyone else can.
Yeah, I can't hear you either. Yeah, Linda, we can't hear you.
How about now?
Good.
Having
Good.
connection problems.
Oh.
So are you finding that with a lot of you that you have to wear a lot of hats, does that interfere with your planning for story time? I mean, I know a lot of you are doing a lot more than just youth services. So how do you plan your time around, like how much time do you spend planning story time? Do you find that that's time consuming? So if you could just kind of touch on that.
Yeah, I can start here in Kenai. Being the children's librarian, it is nice that my workload is directed towards programming. So it seems as though I can sometimes integrate the planning of story times with the planning of other events I have going on and even prep those at the same time. I try and do that. I heard another librarian mention the Cricut, and we use the Cricut for a lot of prepping our art stuff. And so if I'm going to run one thing, I'm going to start running the Storytime arts and crafts deal and just kind of prep that too. But in terms of just, some programs definitely are more involved than others, and I feel a lot more comfortable than when I first started in terms of just planning the story times. I'm a little bit faster at it now. And we had discussed, how long in advance do we plan? I'm usually about a week out, not a full month. It'd be nice to be a full month out, but probably about a week out. And so I am trying to stay a week ahead of the curve. Sometimes I have time to do some, little things around the library that I've been really wanting to do. Other times I know I have to put those on the back burner because the planning of the story times or the planning of other programs that week, got to make sure those are planned. And then combined with the hours that I have to work circulation desk to kind of revolve it around all that. Yeah, it certainly can be a challenge. I try and have the idea in my head, and I think all librarians at some point are shelving books, and I have found that when the ideas aren't coming to me, that just in the act of shelving books, ideas will come to me. So in a way, sometimes that's some of the nicer times that I might be busy with something else, but particularly shelving books in the kids section, I'll pull 3 or 4 books of a similar theme and be like, oh, I got it for 2 weeks out now. I have some idea of what I'm going to do. So so that helps, but yeah.
So this is
in
Joyce.
Nome this year,
Margaret, go.
In Nome this year, we took this CE, this Info People class. I took it, and then Janet took it. And we took it with this lady named Penny Peck out of California. And it was so much fun. because there were people from all over the country taking this class, and one assignment was to basically do a story hour outline. So you could borrow from all those people also. And then they had all these handouts like list of apps appropriate for story time. It was just a really great program. So we were really happy to do that because our story hour is really important to us. It's an essential part of the community support, but it takes a lot of time because we want to do it at a very high level. And often the people at City Hall are telling us, you take too much time, you put too much energy, you shouldn't do that, but we just can't not do it because we love the community response.
And I think I saw that the Penny Peck class is going to be offered again. Julie Niederhauser had sent out an email, I think, on the Aqua list about that yesterday or the day before, and I believe the Penny Peck class is being offered again. So it sounds like something we're checking out.
Yeah, the biggest thing is the first time I took it in December, and that was a month before we were moving. And so it was like not a very good time. And I didn't print out all of the really good information that she had given us. And so after some period of time, you get frozen out and you can't get that information again. So I wanted Janet to have the same experience, but that's why we made the binder. So part of Janet doing it was to print out everything. And so now we have a binder that we can share with whatever staff will help us during the summers. So that's one thing I say, that if you take it only once, be sure you do the printouts.
Good point.
I was
So,
going to say real quick that that Angie does all the actual planning and the thinking up the themes, and she runs everything by me, which is great. I don't have to dream it up, but I do all the publicity, and that is more time consuming than I would have first thought. We put it on Facebook, we put it on our local Delta News web, and we put it in the paper. And keeping all that coordinated and up to date and stuff is a little bit time consuming, and keeping it, more importantly, keeping it fresh, so people will read the article or click on the Facebook page, and is a little bit of a challenge, but it's fun. And Facebook has been a really good way to get the word out about our programs.
what are other options that some of you have found for promotion and outreach?
We do, we call them little, I don't know what we call them. They're little cardstock cards that we leave at the desk with the dates and times for, reminder cards, that's what we call them, for preschool story hour and for baby lap time. And we post them in our lobby. We have a whole bulletin board behind glasses just for the library, so that really works well. We don't do flyers around town. They seem to get, they don't work very well. They just don't work very well. Mostly I think it's just reminding people that it's every Tuesday, Wednesday we have these programs, and to sign up for the Wednesday one, the Tuesday one is drop-in. And they're just teasing them about some fun thing, like if it's a holiday event or something, keeping that right in front of them, especially in the paper and Facebook. Well, the Delta News Web is what everybody looks at first thing in the morning. It's the list of events around town for the day, so that works pretty good too. But that's about it. That's about all we use.
We use the radio here too. We try and make sure that they have the accurate schedule of events at the library, and so that gets read every day during the community calendar, because since we've just got the one station here for Skagway and Haines, it's really where everybody gets their news.
The paper in Kenai, the Peninsula Clarion, picks up local events, and we're never sure when our events will get printed in the paper. And we share the Clarion with the Soldotna Public Library as well as the Kenai Community Library. So there are times where it could be a little bit frustrating that, boy, Soldotna's been printing 6 times in the last week, and we haven't had a printout of our schedule, things like that. But I was actually going to ask in terms of advertising, our schools, I haven't done this, but I was kind of thinking that for particular programs, not just story times, but does the school districts in your community support maybe having brochures or flyers put in the schools? I don't know.
In Homer, we do basically all of those things that you guys talked about, but directly to the schools, depending on the program, particularly if it's like we have an after-school maker club that I think it's Natalie Bates at the school district. You have to have a little blurb on the bottom of the flyer and get her to approve it. But then I think she'll send it out to the schools, or you can share it with the school staff. And a lot of times they will email it, or at the very least you can take it to the schools and hang it up. And so I will do that. My relationships with some of the teachers has helped, because certain teachers will either take printed copies and send them home after school, or they will, these day and age, more teachers email, so they'll email out events. So that's, it's kind of a mishmash, but to do any flyers, you have to have them approved by the district office.
Okay.
So in addition, the paper, just for free, has the community calendar, and they have us in there every week. We have something called Nome Announce, which everybody follows, which is basically social media. So we talk about the story hour. We have flyers around the library. And, we pretty much are getting the response that we want. Whenever we see a new family come to town, we tell them how amazing Story Hour is and please show up. So we definitely do word of mouth within the library. But I got to run to another meeting. I wanted to say that I'm so happy to see James Adcox, and he is actually one of the most talented artists in the state. He's an amazing painter, and we are very lucky to have him. Our school has his artwork as a percentage of art, and I'm just so jealous that you're down in Kenai, but super excited to have you as a colleague. Anybody that wants to come to our grand opening, it's October 28th. So if you want to fly up to Nome and see us, it will be the opening of even though our library is already open, it will be the official opening, because we also have the museum and the cultural center in our space. So I'm signing off, but Janet is going to take over for me.
Thank you, Marguerite.
I will tell my husband about the opening. He works on the Nunonic, who's in and out of Nome all summer. I really hope he's not there for the opening, but I will tell him about it. He loves your library.
Okay, so what I will do is everybody who is on this, I will arrange to get an invitation to you, because the October 28th is by invitation only. So all of you can look forward to an invitation in the mail shortly.
Thanks, Marguerite.
Thank you,
Good
Marguerite.
to see
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
So, are you finding that not just Stephen in terms of promotion, but are you finding that you're working with other community organizations, like partnering? I know some of you bring in musicians to help with story time. Are there other people that you bring in to help you with that?
Go ahead.
Just sometimes our library board members will step in and do a story time here or there. If we're short-staffed for some reason, if somebody's out of town, or sometimes previous employees who are still in town come and do a story time here or there.
So we haven't had a guest storyteller for a while. We're pretty tight with what we're doing, but we did have a situation arise that somebody offered to do a story hour, to do some singing, and we weren't that excited about the offer. I'm trying to be polite here. And so we've just sort of put it off for a while and said maybe in the future. And the person was looking for to perform instead of to present to the kids. He just wanted to perform, have an audience, a built-in audience to promote his whole thing. It was uncomfortable. And I just wondered if anybody else has had to gently turn down somebody.
This is Claudia. This is a great topic because I have one volunteer who's volunteered here. He's probably volunteered off and on. He's the guitar player for like 12 years or something. And he's actually, in terms of early literacy, he includes so many things and he doesn't even know it, right? So he's really good. But when I first started working at the library, there was a Storytime volunteer who was barely audible, and trying to kind of coach her, and it really didn't help. And eventually she kind of took herself out of the running. But one of the kind of community partners we have is kind of an environmental education center, and the staff that they have are really good. And so when the regular staff members come, it's usually pretty good. They're not necessarily picking books that have good preschool appeal, but it's a good relationship, and the kids get different exposure and stuff. But they recently brought 2 interns, and the director came, and she brought 2 interns to my surprise, and I cringed when the director said, okay, who wants to read the stories? And one of the interns said, oh, I hate reading in public. And I thought, why would you bring this poor woman to story time if she hates reading in public? And so, like you in Delta, it's like this awkward situation. Like, do you completely shut down, or does the value of having community mentors in story time, connecting with families that they may not meet, like what is, what's that fine line? And, what's your gauge on determining what volunteers, what situations work? I did have a good one where public health nurses came to story time, but I set it up so that, not knowing what their skills and interests were, where I did most of the traditional piece, and then they were very comfortable casually talking with families. Just, this is what public health offers if you have questions about services, and they were very comfortable doing that. So it was a great fit. But I really am cautious when people want to volunteer, because they're very good natured, but I don't think most people understand what goes into story time. It's quite a lot, as you know.
The only thing I came up with was maybe an audition for me, and then really saying, so how are you going to relate this to a 5-year-old, and see if that would work. But we didn't get that far yet. But that's what I've got on the back burner if it comes up again.
I felt like when we had it was a public health week also, and we had a pediatrician coming to do a story time. I thought it was wonderful, and I thought she did a fantastic job, wonderful job. But as the children's librarian, of course, I am a little nervous. I'm hoping that they'll do a good job. So I go ahead and I plan the story time as I would do it, as just a fallback if maybe they didn't plan enough time, or in this particular situation, the pediatrician was very open to the idea of, if you want to do an arts and crafts, and I actually thought we kind of tag teamed pretty well there in terms of, I opened up the group with a song, I introduced our guest, the guest did a lot of the story time and interaction, and then I concluded the group with a song and arts and crafts. And that was not planned, but it was nice. I think I did have a little bit of nervousness towards someone, taking over the group that, of course, she's a pediatrician, so she's probably going to be really good with kids, but I didn't know. So, I have yet to have anyone volunteer to to want to do it just on a private level or not representing an organization. I am excited to offer invitations. I would love to have a police officer, firefighter come in and do a reading and things like that. It does make me nervous always, just in terms of the ability to interact, but in some cases I go through word of mouth or talking to people, how are they with kids? Even for our summer reading program, we had a group from a karate martial arts group come. We had a Native Youth Olympics. We had several guest speakers, and in every instance, I would ask people from the community, are they good with kids? And I would say for the most part, it was all very good experiences having the guest speaker. Every now and then there'd be something, it was kind of a little awkward or something, but I thought so far I've had good experiences so far.
I think sometimes those end up being almost political decisions where we've had, events where we'd invite the mayor to come and read a story, and fortunately he did a pretty good job, but it's really hard to say no, like, oh no, we really don't want the mayor here. You can't really say no.
I think sometimes what we've done with particularly performers, this one singer and guitarist is different, but with other musicians who say, oh, I'd like to come to Storytime, is that I'll set up like a different program for them, like, on a Saturday or an evening where there might be a different expectation for the families. I feel like, families kind of expect certain, I don't know if it's a certain level of program at Storytime or a certain kind of program. And so if a volunteer or a presenter may be uncomfortable with that bantering that goes back and forth with preschoolers or interruptions or whatever, a separate program, there's almost like there's not those expectations, and so it may be easier for the performer. And then you're actually offering an extra program, which is nice. And then you can kind of bet them for Storytime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't really have any other questions to bring up, but I thought I would just kind of open it up to you guys. We've got about 15 minutes left. If there are any things that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share or ask questions about, I'll open it up to you.
I know I mentioned devices early on, but does anybody have a standard of practice for device use during story hours for parents or even for kids, I guess?
Our parents are always really respectful and don't seem to pull their phones out at all. Just maybe because it's usually such a small group, they kind of have to be actively engaged. They can't just kind of set the child down and then back away. So we don't even really need it, which is nice.
I don't have a standard policy, or I don't, sometimes I'll have families take pictures of us at Storytime, or I've even had a case of a family that English is a second language and they've actually recorded the songs that we're singing, which is okay. I kind of go at it with the approach that if someone needs to communicate with somebody, that there may be some situation there that I don't understand. The only time in a few 3 or 4 years where I've ever said anything, I said to families, hey, kids tend to participate more when they see the adults participating. And it wasn't specifically, well, I noticed there were a few people kind of checking their phones. It was even targeted at the families who weren't on phones, who were just sitting back. And kids were kind of seeing that and started to get nervous and started to sit back. So that's the only time I've said anything. It hasn't really been an issue. And as I said, I kind of just try not to assume anything about what the family's needs are at the time. And, whenever I use an iPad in Storytime, I really broach it, what I mentioned earlier, like we're going to play together and kind of model that. We're going to play this app or share this book app together and then put it away, and kind of making it about what we're doing together and it being very intentional. And I will even say using digital media together, builds relationships and is more valuable for learning. And, what you do with your digital device is what kids will see. So I kind of talk about that, in a quick few seconds. So.
In Kenai, we haven't experienced a problem too much with the digital devices. It's nice. I can think of last story time last week. We had a mom use the restroom during story time and left her little one sitting there. And when the little one realized that mom had left, she started to cry in the middle of story time. But being a small community, there was kind of maybe a grandma figure to the little girl that knows the little girl and said, "Oh, come sit on my lap." And she shared her lap with this little girl that was crying until mom came out of the restroom. And I loved that. I loved seeing that, just because the community, they might know each other outside of the story time, but they've all been coming to the same story time for several months, that everyone's starting to get to know each other a little bit, and that the girl felt comfortable going to this other lady's lap to sit down, and it really didn't have to stop story time too much at all. So it's nice to see the involvement. It's nice to see the parents caring, and for the most part, that's been the experience. I've never had to really talk to a parent about digital devices as of yet.
I guess the thing that bothered me the most is that we do have parents who are in front of the screen, and the story hour lady and story hour is supposed to amuse the child while they're on the screen. And it's just a little bit heartbreaking to me. You brought your child to story hour and they don't, not a whole lot, but they don't seem to want to engage at that point. And so we just actually posted a sign that said no devices during story hour. I mean, it's 20 minutes. You can live without your device, we hope. And I think we're just going to stick with it. I don't mind somebody checking their phone for a message or something, but an iPad up here in front of their face and they're not engaged with the kid. I know it's a parent issue more than anything else, but it's a little bit heartbreaking. So.
I was going to ask a question. I start my story time with a song. I usually give the parents, maybe 1 or 2 minutes after our set time to kind of gather in and everything. And then I sit down, I say, "Oh, we're about to start." And then I start with the song. And I wanted to ask how other librarians initiate their story time. Do they play a song from the computer or anything to indicate that the time's about to start, rather than, I feel like I kind of have to walk around the kids section and say, we're about to start, is what I tell them. I just wanted to know other ways. I really liked hearing that Janet grabs the bucket of eggs and the kids know story time's about to start. That's kind of a nice, so just throwing out how you guys initiate story time without just going around and reminding parents we're about to start in a minute or two.
That's been a bit awkward for us because I have to wait at least 5 or 10 minutes to make sure that everybody's here that plans to be here. So then the families that kind of are here already, and then if nobody else shows up, that we've all just been sitting there chatting for 5 or 10 minutes. So actually just a couple weeks ago, I've started just actually singing the same hello song that I was using for the music time. We're just going to do it at story time now too, to kind of demarcate it for the kids as well as the parents. Like, now's the time, we're going to do it. So that seems to work, to bring them to be present, kind of.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a Storytime chair that Miss Angie sits in that's empty. And she usually has something there that she's going to use during this story. And so everybody knows that's her place, and that when she makes her way to there, then story hour starts. But she does a cool thing. She walks from the back of the area kind of through towards her chair, and as she comes through, she says hello to different kids. And then they see her moving, and she sort of says, hi, here we go. I'm getting ready to go to my chair. And it's just a small thing, but it seems to focus everybody just to move on into, and then when she sits down, she has almost everyone's attention. It's like now she's ready to start. She doesn't have to make a huge announcement, but they do start with the same song every day. So that seems to be a cue too, because there's always somebody that's a little bit late. So that song gives them 3 minutes to get there and get organized. We also are pretty tough about starting on time. And that took about 6 months, and then we don't have very many late people anymore. There's always maybe one, but we start on time. It was creeping up to be 15 minutes late, so we just said we're starting on time, and that seems to be the way that it goes.
We start with a song too. It's the ABC song. Then after our ABC song, it's we count the children. And that gets them excited because like you just individually just over their head you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, and it kind of brings their attention like, oh, I'm included. and yeah, that's about it. And the ABC song pretty much indicates whoever's like around the story area, just like, oh, it's starting, I better get to the rug kind of deal. And yeah, that's about it.
In Homer, for the toddler story time, I start with a same song that we sing and also sign to. But I wanted to show you guys a couple other tools, because our preschool story time starts at 10 when we open. And so there are kids usually waiting at the door, but then there's stragglers. And I kind of was like, oh, I can't get them here on time. But what I did instead of started reading is I usually start the preschool story time with one of these two. These are, you may have seen these, they're alphabet cards where kids are making the shape of the letter. And so I usually let 5 to 7 kids, depending on how fast we're going, pick a letter card out of my bag. And as a group, we give the name of the letter. Sometimes kids will shout out that the letter's in their name. And then we make the shape of the letter. And so it's a great stretching tool. It's a great casual tool for kind of beginning as people are coming in before you start reading. The other one is this. I don't know if anyone has used one of these before, but it's a homemade song or rhyme cube. And on each side, there's a picture that connects with a familiar song. And I have the word attached to it, so like head, shoulders, and knees and toes. And so 3 or 4 kids will take turns rolling it on the floor, and whatever picture is on the top is the song that we sing together. So kids are helping choose the song. They're connecting with the idea that the picture is a symbol for a song, and I talk to families about, letters and words being symbols. So those two kind of get this casual start so that the late families filter in, and then I start reading. So there's usually some conversation that happens there. Kids are learning to kind of take turns. The kids that know the letter names are modeling for kids that don't quite know the letter names yet. So those are great. They were both this is just made out of a tissue box that I covered with paper and printed out some pictures and tape. But both are pretty simple, pretty inexpensive tools for starting story time that get kids actively participating right from the get-go.
Great. Thank you.
So